For years, Ted Bundy lived among us, and no one understood what he was really watching. He was born on November 24, 1946, in Burlington, Vermont, into a family where his identity was blurred from the start. Raised as the son of his grandparents, introduced to the world as the brother of his own mother. This early deception would later be examined by investigators trying to understand how he learned so young to manipulate appearances. In the 1950s, the family moved to Tacoma, Washington. Bundy spent long hours alone, observing people, analyzing their gestures, their habits, their vulnerabilities. At the University of Washington, he studied psychology, then became involved in political campaigns. Classmates remembered him as ambitious but unreadable, someone who blended into any environment without ever revealing much about himself. By the early 1970s, his days were structured around constant movement. He woke early, scanned local newspapers, noted campus events, library schedules, and the flow of students across different areas. He spent hours on university grounds, quietly watching who walked where, at what time, and with whom. He worked in political offices, learning how to present himself, how to speak, how to gain trust. At night, he drove for long stretches, mapping isolated streets, dimly lit parking lots, and places where strangers went unnoticed. These behaviors, later reconstructed by investigators, revealed a pattern of preparation that no one around him suspected. On January 4, 1974, a University of Washington student was attacked in her apartment. The official reports remain factual: forced entry, struggle, rapid escape of the assailant. Weeks later, another student disappeared. Witnesses mentioned a well-dressed man, polite brown hair, nothing alarming. But one detail kept returning: a beige Volkswagen. At this point, no one connected the incidents. Investigators wondered how someone so ordinary could appear in so many accounts without raising suspicion. On July 14, 1974, at Lake Sammamish State Park, two young women vanished on the same day. Multiple witnesses described a man calling himself Ted, wearing an arm sling, asking for help loading a boat onto his car. This testimony changed everything. Police released a composite sketch and received more than 3,000 calls. Among the names submitted, one stood out: Ted Bundy. But investigators hesitated. Bundy was a law student, politically active, with no criminal record. One officer later admitted, "He didn't fit the image we had in mind." That hesitation delayed the investigation for months. In 1975, Bundy was stopped in Utah for a traffic violation. Inside his car, officers found a ski mask, rope, a crowbar, and gloves. None of these items were illegal, but together they raised questions. Investigators began linking Bundy to disappearances in Utah, Colorado, and Washington. Case files showed similarities: isolated locations, student victims, late-night hours. Bundy was placed under surveillance, yet he continued living a seemingly normal life, visiting libraries, driving across town, spending time with his girlfriend, calling friends. Nothing in his behavior suggested he was the focus of a multi-state investigation. In 1976, he was convicted of kidnapping in Utah. While serving his sentence, Colorado charged him in another case. In June 1977, during a hearing in Aspen, Bundy escaped by jumping from a second-story window when guards looked away. He remained missing for 6 days. Search teams combed the area, but Bundy moved quickly and knew how to avoid detection. He was eventually found during a routine stop. Months later, in December 1977, he escaped again, this time from the Garfield County Jail, after creating an opening in the ceiling of his cell. The escape was so carefully planned that investigators were stunned. How could a monitored inmate vanish without leaving a trace? Bundy traveled to Florida under a false identity. He spent time in university libraries, walked through campuses, blended into student crowds. He rented a room in a boarding house, kept a low profile, but remained constantly on the move. On February 15, 1978, he was arrested in Pensacola after another traffic stop. He gave a false name, but fingerprints confirmed his identity. Inside the vehicle, officers found student IDs, receipts, and personal items belonging to others. These objects became key evidence. His 1979 Florida trial became one of the first major televised criminal trials in the United States. Bundy chose to represent himself, creating unpredictable moments, unusual cross-examinations, frequent objections, tense exchanges with Judge Edward Cowart. Prosecutors presented physical evidence, witness testimony, and scientific analysis. On July 24, 1979, Bundy was found guilty. During sentencing, Judge Cowart told him, "You would have made a good lawyer." The remark captured the contradiction at the heart of Bundy's persona. Intelligent, articulate, but driven by impulses he could not control. In 1980, Bundy was convicted in a second Florida case. Over the following years, he filed multiple appeals, all denied. In 1989, as his final deadlines approached, he began providing investigators with information about other unsolved cases. FBI agents noted that he seemed to reveal details strategically, offering just enough to delay the inevitable. Some of his statements helped reopen old files. Others raised new questions. One detail continues to puzzle experts. Bundy knew information that only investigators and the perpetrator could have known, yet he revealed it selectively, as if he still wanted to shape the narrative. On January 24, 1989, inside Florida State Prison, Ted Bundy reached the end of a long legal process. Outside the facility, crowds waited for the official announcement. Inside, investigators watched the clock, aware that whatever happened in that room would close the case, but not the mysteries. When the confirmation finally came, one chapter ended, but the unanswered questions he carried with him remained.